to the Time Freedom Summit for dentists and dental professionals. I'm your host, Nomita Mehta, and for this summit, we've got together extraordinary coaches, consultants, and dentists to help you create a business that gives you time and financial freedom. As a leader in your practice, communication is key. Being able to communicate with clarity and inspiration can help you make it or break it. So, Katherine Eitel, our guest today, is the creator of the Lioness Principle, a unique and powerful leadership concept for corporations, dental and healthcare practices, and individuals looking to access their full potential. An inspirational keynote speaker, workshop leader, corporate trainer, and a personal performance coach, she specializes in extraordinary leadership and high-level communication skills. She's also the winner of the coveted Spotlight on Speaking Award. Wow, Katherine! A contributor to most major industry publications, as well as the new book, Powerful Practice. Her transformational trainers workshops and Lion Camp team leadership retreats are annual sellouts. We're going to ask you more about them. So, Katherine, I also enjoy the Monday morning stretch that you have on your website, and I just want to share the one you had this Monday. That breathe, and the Monday morning stretch is about breathing life back into your practice, your team, and you. That's excellent. So this Monday it was challenge limiting beliefs, change the status quo, and leap into the future. How perfect is that when we are in 2017?
It is.
So today's topic is the Lioness Principle. 3 instinctive leadership tools to help guide your decisions and achieve the life you want. Katherine, welcome to the program.
Oh, Nomita, thank you for having me. This is such a timely and needed topic and discussion, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be with you today.
Lovely, lovely. Okay, so Katherine, before I get into the questions, I'd like to know a little bit about what has brought you to where you are, what was your journey, and what, if I may ask, has been the secret to your success?
Oh my, that's a loaded question. Let's see if I can give you the short version. I started in dentistry in college and as a chairside dental assistant, and moved on to a front desk administrator's position. So I've worked in dentistry for most of my adult life. I took a job after moving with a consulting company, and that led me ultimately to breaking away at some point and starting my own. I fell in love with teaching, and I just wanted to teach my own principles, and they varied a little bit from that group. So I started, and I was a practice management consultant for several decades. And along that journey, I felt like I had a lot of good systems and techniques and all of that. But I was frustrated because I would go to clients' offices, we would teach these things, and then I would come back in a few months, and often it seemed to me like I'd never been there. Oh. It was like there was a drop somehow. The information was just dropped, and so it was frustrating, and it led me to a study, which I would say I'm still inside that study, but I have been studying for the last probably 7 or 8 years, an intensive look at how adults learn and how the adult brain incorporates real information and makes real change. And that study of adult learning led me to make radical changes in the way I teach. Not the content so much, but the way I teach. And my results went through the roof. Clients noticed, colleagues noticed. They noticed I was getting way better results. They noticed my business was thriving, and they noticed I was having a lot more fun. I was a lot more relaxed, a lot less tired, and having a lot more fun. And so that led to some requests for me to teach colleagues how I train. They all had their own information and their own, some consultants only taught OSHA or HIPAA, and some were hygiene coaches, and we all taught different things. But what we had in common was that we were trying to create real change and shifts with an adult professional population. And so that led my company to start a new arm that now has become the overriding emphasis of my company, which is to train the trainer, train the adult, and train the speaker. So as of January 1st, we're actually rebranding. I stopped dental consulting, full practice management consulting. I stopped that in January of 2016, and now our company, which will be officially rebranded this January, is a communication skills coaching company. So we only coach on communication skills from on a wide range, from frontline people who are answering the telephones, having financial conversations with patients, presenting treatment plans to patients, all of that, to a piece in the middle, I would say, on that spectrum, which is practice leaders, whether they are practice managers, administrators, or owners. And we coach them on leadership conversations, the creation of a vision conversation that is really meaningful, and then inter-team communication, so the team gets along and creates this really a culture on purpose. Yes. And then at the far end of that spectrum, as I said, we're coaching other professional speakers on their platform speaking skills, and a lot of internal corporate teams, sales teams, and executive level teams on their speaking and training protocols and communication. So it's been exciting. I would say secret to my success has been constantly, exactly what we're going to talk about today, constantly challenging my limiting beliefs and being open to the possibilities that gives me. So a lot of people would have said, if you're going to coach communication skills, you have to coach systems, you have to be able to monitor the metrics and all of those things, and it just hasn't turned out to be the case. I've been able to focus on just what I love, just where I think I'm gifted, and that has just, our business is just booming right now. So
well, that is such a key topic, it's not even a topic, it's a subject, and it applies at all levels.
Yes.
Ministries. I love that. We're going to really get the nitty-gritties out of you today. So can we start with, what is the lioness principle? And really, if you could tie it with how can it provide time freedom to dentists?
Well, it is the core of everything we teach. And it actually stemmed from a Discovery Channel program that I actually watched years ago. I was watching it with my son, but watching it, it occurred to me that what I was watching and what scientists on that program were talking about was exactly analogous to what I wanted to teach. The program was about how a lioness teaches her cubs to hunt, which of course is the skill they need to survive and thrive. And so the program basically identified 7 stages that scientists say that lionesses predictably take their cubs through to move them from utter dependence upon them, in other words, dependence upon their, they couldn't survive without their mothers, all the way to independence, where they can thrive and start a new pride. And so these 7 steps have become the stages of leadership for us and of communication. But here's the essential piece of the lioness principle. While it does look like she's teaching, and I guess in some ways the lioness is teaching her cubs, but what's at the bottom of that, or at the core of that, is that the lions, the cubs, are actually born already with the knowledge. So if any of your listeners to this have a house cat or have ever watched a kitten, if a butterfly flies by them or a leaf blows by in the wind for a kitten, they don't have to go to their mother and learn 7 steps to know what to do.
True.
They instinctively, like all mammals on the planet, including us, they are born with ancient wisdom and incredible knowledge, and I would say the understandings that are the underpinnings of living life, that is hardwired into our DNA, that wisdom. Great, really, the seeds of greatness are hardwired. So what happens though is in its infancy stages, we just don't know what to do with it. And so sometimes human beings think they don't have it. And so the lioness principle suggests that everyone is born with those seeds of greatness, every single human being. And every one of us is born with the instinctual wisdom we need to be great. Mm-hmm. And great leaders recognize that, believe it, and understand, like the lioness, that their job now is to create this environment where they can tease out of people what they were already born with and what they already know. And so the lioness principle is the underpinning of all the communication. So here's a good practical example of that. Mm-hmm. We teach a lot of phone skills. Matter of fact, we do thousands of mystery shopper calls every year after we have trained a team. And in the past, the way phone skills has been taught traditionally has been by scripting, by creating scripting in an effort to create consistency across the lines, right? So that no matter who answered the phone, if they all knew this script, they'd all kind of we'd have some consistency of results. But in fact, when you do the amount of study we've done and thousands of mystery shopper calls, what we find is that the script gets followed when the coach is there or when the boss is maybe looking, but all of the majority of the time when they're not being closely supervised, they don't follow it. They tend to fall back to their own habits and their own way of communicating. So
I've seen that too.
Haven't you?
That is so true. But you know, you just think that's the way it is. It's just this one time they're forgetting.
Yeah, and what we know is that they're not. So what we have found is if we can tap into that level of the lioness principle, when we get a group of administrators together and say, look, we're not going to hand you a book of scripts. What we want to do is help you change the way you approach conversations on the telephone with these human beings on the other end of the line, these patients that have needs and wants and desires. We want to train you to tap into the greatness, the wisdom, that piece that you already have, and we'll give you some structure. We teach them a 4-step protocol. So as long as they stay within that 4-step protocol, we know we'll get consistent results, and we also know that they can be a bigger them within that protocol. So on the phone, if they're naturally funny, we say be funny. If you're naturally gracious and kind, then be more of that, but don't show up small. Don't show up small, show up big. And so that's a good example of, you don't need the script. Like, you don't need, the lioness knows that if I create this structure and teach them to stay within it, they already have what they need to bring to the equation. And so we have found that those administrators then embrace the idea of mystery shopper calls. They see them, and we help them see those tools as a way for them to advance their own personal careers in this industry. It becomes a tool for them, not just for the practice. And that's where we've been able to get such incredible results quickly, where the administrators love it and they're doing it whether someone's looking or not, and where the practice owners are happy because we're getting consistent results. And so that's a good expression, I think, in practical terms, of the lioness principle at work.
Wonderful, wonderful. So, Katherine, now tell us how that lioness principle can make the dentist a good leader.
I think that what your listeners are on this program to find out, like you said in the introduction, was how do I create more time freedom and financial freedom? And so I've thought a lot about that because as I said earlier, we do a lot of work with business owners and team leaders on their leadership communications. And we take a different tact to that than most. Our tact is how do we, in an unscripted way, help leaders passionately communicate where they'd like to go, not where they are or where they're going to be next year, but where do we want to go, and how do we rally a team of people that we're going to need to help us accomplish that? How do we do that in a way that, really works? So traditional ways of visioning, because let me back up one step. If doctors or business owners or leaders want more time and more financial freedom, I believe the way you do that is you get alignment. You gain alignment between a life vision. In other words, you reverse engineer from a life vision perspective into a professional vision, not the other way around. And typically, that's how it's done. If they have a vision at all, it's for their business. And then they try to fit their life into that. And the vision of the business is running the overall life, and it doesn't work. The fans of the business are never going to be ultimately, satisfied. There's all the business, the vision of a business is to really, really grow that. And so if you don't reverse engineer this, you suddenly have no time at home, no good relationships at home, no balance in your life. So we do it differently. We help leaders and team members in a very simple format. My belief is to keep it simple. So we have a set of simple questions that we're going to offer to your listeners at the end of this program. But we have a set of questions that we help team members and leaders and owners answer for their life. For their life. If we could have this any way we wanted, how would we do that? And then where does work, or how would work in our professional life support the overall life vision? So here's a good practical example. Last year, about 18 months ago, I married man of my dreams, right? So life is really good. And he has a cabin, a rustic mountain cabin in the Sierras that's been in his family for almost 100 years. So great-grandparents built it. His whole family very sentimental about this summer cabin. It's only available to us in the summer. And so he had just retired. He's just retired as a school teacher. So he had summers off. He's lived his whole professional life with summers off. And a good part of that summer, 4 to 6 weeks, sometimes 8 weeks, was up there spent at this cabin. So when we married, we had a discussion around that's super important to him. I love it up there. I find a great peace up there, and it's a very big part of us finding our life balance is spending time in those mountains. And for us, it has been crucial that we say this is what our life looks like. And part of it is that it includes at least 6 weeks in every summer up in these cabins. So I run a business. I run my own business. He's now starting a new business. And we're having to figure out not how others are doing it, but how would we do it to accomplish the financial freedom we want and the time freedom we want to be able to have 6 weeks or maybe more every summer up there. So I started very different decisions about my business, and my business has not been held back, Nomita, by this.
It's probably grown. You're probably more rejuvenated. Yeah.
But it's only because I've already made decisions about how, I work from home. I have a home office. So it's very easy to work late into the night or through the weekend because it's right here. And so we've had to work on what is this life, what is it going to look like so that I can then have the business support the life, not the other way around.
Beautiful.
So that's a huge piece, I think, of that.
That's great, Katherine. That was crucial and such an important way to plan everything. Like get the final vision, clarity on that, and then reverse engineer. Totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Katherine, in your experience, tell me, so if a dentist were to start to think this way and start to, implement their plans and their next year's kind of goals with this clarity. I mean, tell me, what has been your experience of a dentist can go from what position to what kind of transformation? I mean, give me a good example of someone who's got that aligned.
Okay, so I'll give you some steps that I think are important, and then I'll give you some examples of people who've done it. So like I said, I like to keep it simple. So when we start with someone, we say, all right, so even with a team, it doesn't matter, an individual or a team, I love working with teams. So we say, so let's not think business right now. Let's just get some clarity on what we want our life. Because some team members want their kids to go to a particular school, but they don't feel they have the income to pay for that tuition. Or, we just get them to dream. We get them to say, let's just pretend you have all the money and you have all the ability. What would life look like for you at its highest level personally, right? So how many days a week would you be doing a job you love? How much would you be with your family? When would that happen? What's important there? Where would you live? How would you operate? And so we get them to map that out. And then we give them, we've usually already given the owner of the business another different set of questions. Here's my philosophy on vision. Business vision. I think we've overcomplicated this horribly as an industry. We used to think that groups would come together and write the vision for a business. I disagree with that wholeheartedly, 100%. I think the only people who can write a vision for a business, or should, are the owners of that business, 100%. So it is the owner's, I think, prerogative to build any kind of a business they want, going any direction they want. It is also their responsibility. If they want to try to have a team support them in that, they can't do it without getting that team clear. And not just clear, you could be clear on the owner's vision that you work for, the owner you work for. You could be clear on their vision, but not in alignment with it. So the owner's responsibility is to communicate that vision clearly. So everyone is clear and no one has questions about it. And then once that clarity has been established, to invite them, and that's an important word, to invite them to align or not, with no judgment. No judgment. And I'm going to give you a good example in a minute of that. So once people align, then we actually create a position within practices we call the dream manager's position. And it's often someone who already has a position in the practice or the business. I have it in my company, someone who's already doing another job, but they're good at this piece, and it becomes an extension of their job description. They are the dream manager for the practice. And what happens is that person meets with every employee individually and confidentially and finds out what is the next step on their personal life vision they would like to accomplish. And they figure out what do they need to get from the work environment to support them getting that. And that's how we begin to set some goals. Nomita, I cannot tell you how much we have seen teams just get on fire and go far beyond their goals much quicker than they ever thought when the people on the team were aligned with the owner's vision. They understood it and they lined up with it. They felt like it was just made for them, and they also connected their work within that vision to getting something personal that they've always wanted. I mean, people work in a completely different manner when they have clarity about that. And so that has created just, I mean, sometimes it's shocking to me, the stories that people give back to us after this work. And so what we do is we coach the owner on just some simple questions. We don't worry about making it look fancy or sound fancy. We actually say, we don't care if you ever put this on your wall. Some little pieces might make it to your wall, or some little pieces might make it on your website. But when you write it, we want you to write it so that when you read it out loud, your heart quickens. Like your soul is stirred. Like you say to yourself, I don't know how I do this, but if I could figure out how to do this, I would just, all my dreams would be fulfilled, you know? And so professionally. And so we say, don't get stuck in. Here's some of the rules. Don't justify anything. We don't have to even know ourselves why we like working from 7 to 3 instead of 10 to 8. Like we just do. We don't have to know why. You don't have to go to your team and say, well, I'm sorry, but I'm just a morning person. It's just how I was raised. And I don't know. I just wake up when the sun comes up. And so I want to work 3 to 6. You don't have to do any of that. You just have to say, here's my vision. This is what I like, and this is what I'm going to build. I'm going to build a company where we're open 7 to 3, and we do the things that I need to do or want to do within those hours, or whatever, right? Or whatever it is. So we ask ourselves, with no justification, what do you want to do? Who do you want to work with? What kind of procedures do you want to do? It doesn't matter. Do you hate endo? Do you not want to ever work on a kid again? It doesn't matter. You don't have to justify it. You just say, this is who I am. This is what I like. It's what I'm drawn to. So we get that clear. Then we actually help the owner on how they're going to communicate this. I can't help them with that. I can help them write it. I can help them get clear about it. And I can coach them on how to deliver it to their team, but the owner has to stand up before their team and say it. And so when we write it, I say, let's write it conversationally so that you can just have a conversation of sorts with your team, unveiling this new vision for where we're going. And I recommend our clients do it every year, once a year. Every year, we create what we call a calibration retreat. And every year, basically, we recalibrate the vision and the team. We do it in an off-site meeting. I'm often at those meetings to help facilitate it. But every year, the owner stands up and says, here's the vision again, or here's the vision, and I've tweaked it a little bit. I'm now changing my mind on some things, which is totally their right and prerogative, right? And so we help them say, okay, so right now, what does the vision look like? It may change in the future. Mine certainly has. You know, I used to be a practice management consultant. And then I found out I was good at this train the trainer communications training. That's where I really got jazzed. That's where it didn't even feel like work to me. I was excited over here more. And so my vision from 5 years ago has shifted. But
all of us are going to go through different seasons of life.
Sure.
So the vision is going to dramatically change, especially in us women. You know,
right. I mean, I used to love being on a plane all the time because my life supported it. Now I'm recently married. Now I say, well, now if I'm engineering work to support my greater life, I want to engineer my work now so I'm not constantly on a plane anymore, because now, given my life circumstance, I'd like to be home a little more. So anything's possible. Anything's possible. So the rules about putting it together are don't find the need to justify it. Resist the need to justify. Just like what you like, love what you love. All right.
Yeah.
And then also recognize that we all are operating on a set of beliefs. All of us believe certain things are right or wrong, or good or bad, or acceptable or not acceptable. They work or they don't work. We all have these beliefs, and we don't all believe the same thing. Some of us believe some things are possible, and other people believe that's impossible. And so all I try to teach my clients to do, and we do a lot of work on this, is giving them tools, number one, to recognize what their beliefs are, and number two, the tools to challenge the beliefs to see, are those beliefs serving me well, or are they holding me back? Are they limiting the possibilities I could look at, the choices I could look at? And limiting beliefs often limit, that's why we call them that, they limit options. And so once we start challenging, well, is that really the only way that could go? Or is there another way I could look at that and get both, you know, be both a great mother and be a really successful businesswoman? Is there a way that I could have both? And you know, if you were taught or you grew up in the belief that you had to pick, it was either or, either be a great mother or be a really successful businesswoman, then you may believe that being both is not possible. But I'm here to tell you that I have people in my life, whether it's professionally or personally, that we have explored those limiting beliefs, and we have created the most amazing circumstances in merging what they want in their professional life and what they want in their personal life. And so I teach people to challenge those beliefs. We have a set of tools that we give them to constantly be using. And it's been so much fun to see people blossom and come alive, whether they own a business, whether they're a manager in a business, or whether they're a front lines worker in the business. All of us deserve to live a life that's abundant, and we can. And so there's just a couple of tools, I think, Nomita, that can really make that happen.
I love that. I love that. And I do want to add one thing, that this is such a time of the year that all the things you said, it does come down to sitting and thinking for yourself. And you know, it's just in our rut of life, if we don't stop and give ourselves that time and space to think, you're going to be back on the treadmill with almost no change.
That's right.
It took me a few years to really understand the value of stopping, thinking, reflecting, and getting clarity on what I want. And then, like you said, everything is possible. I love that. You know, you see how the two then just go together, but we have to have that clarity of what.
And that time is created. We help people, you know, we give them, we say, we're going to come together at this time. And so here you have a month or 2 weeks. Here's a set of questions. Go get a cup of coffee or a glass of wine or whatever it is for you, a cup of hot tea, and go sit somewhere quiet. No kids, no spouses, just you. And answer these questions and let your mind, again, with some rules. Don't justify it. Don't worry about why you do or why. No one's going to read it. So that's that. And then we have this calibration retreat. That's why it's offsite. We get out of the practice, out of the business, physical, place, and we go offsite in some we find the most interesting places to have these retreats. We've had them at climbing gyms and adventure courses, and we've had them at wineries and all kinds of creative places where we've done some amazing team building things, but we've also really gotten serious about how do we align the group's personal visions with the business vision they're signing up for. And what is that exactly? And how has it changed from last year? And so that's a piece of time. The other piece of time is that time they get one-on-one with their dream manager in the practice. Mm-hmm. And I told you I'd give you an example. One time we were coaching a group, and an older woman there her family were immigrants from they were from France, and her grandmother had never been back to France since she was a child, like 10 years old. But she had grown up with these stories of all the relatives and all the people and all the places and where their homes were, for generations over there. And so in talking with the dream manager, she said, well, if I could have anything and money were no option, no object, and I could, and time wasn't a hindrance at all, I would take a couple of weeks and take my grandmother back before she dies, back to her homeland to see those relatives and have her show me where I come from. And she said, but I don't have the money and I don't think I can have the time off. And so the dream manager's job is to say, well, we're not putting limits on this. All I want you to do is say, if it were possible, if I were able to get the money, if I were able to get the time, what would it look like? And she said, well, heck, if I could do that, I'd take 3 weeks. And the dream manager said, well, why not 4? And so they created this goal of this woman who, I'll tell you, had been fairly resistant to most of our coaching. She had been pretty resistant to our coaching. After one session with that dream manager, them fleshing out what would it look like for the practice to be able to comfortably support her making this money and having this time, she now associated the things we were asking her to do and the changes and the growth we were asking from her. She associated that with her path to get to take this grandmother back to France for these weeks. And sure enough, about a year later, she was able to take that trip and have that. But it was because she was able to connect it to her life vision. And I think that is absolutely for us, the joy of this work.
Lovely, lovely. That is such a touching story, and so real and so doable. And I can totally relate with some of my staff members that have these deep down dreams.
Yes.
If only they were allowed to come out with it, and then to actually have that happen.
Yes.
Okay, Katherine, I am going to start to wind up here.
Sure.
Love to hear what you're saying. So important and so wonderful, but time is of the essence. So I do want to just summarize a couple of things that you said. So we talked about, or you shared with us, the lioness principle and how communication is the key. We went through some of the, you very well explained the 7 principles, right, that the lioness uses. And I loved it that we're all born with those things. We just have to have the right medium to express them. And that's what you're getting out. And if every team member is given that kind of a platform to work with, can you imagine the greatness that comes out? I love that. And then we really you talked, the second half, I would say, was on the vision, and how you said that it's that final vision and then reverse engineering to your business goals and to your daily, to-do list. Love that. And I think we're all on the same page that this is a good time to get that rolling for next year. I mean,
for sure.
Appropriate. Thank you for that, Katherine. I do have one last question, but we'll have to be quick. Is that what, Katherine, I ask this to every expert. What is the one thing that you do to create time in your life?
I have daily, weekly, and yearly what would I call, like a schedule, a routine. So every morning, my husband and I try, most mornings we're successful. We're usually always reading some book that helps us with our personal growth. And so we read a little bit, we do some meditation or prayer, and then we start our day from that strong platform. And we try to end our day with technology off and just reconnecting there. So that's one way. Weekly, Sundays is a day of rest. I think the Sabbath, however you define it, that idea is a really powerful idea, to have a day a week where you're not working, you're actually resting and enjoying your life. And so for us, most of the time, Sundays are that day where we really try to do things we enjoy and just be together and enjoy the fruits of the other 6 days where we're working. And so I think that's it. So just having a routine like that, I think we don't always, sometimes I'm flying out to something on a Sunday, but for as much as we can, we try to be true to those routines. So I would say to your listeners, just find a rhythm that works for you, and try to stick to it for some just time for you. Yeah.
I agree. That morning routine is so key to, it's like priming you and prepping you to have a great day. It's your warm up. You cannot go wrong after that.
I say it reboots us. It reboots us. Even if we had a bad day the day before, we get to reboot and set the counters to 0 and start over, you know, and so I like that.
I like that. Thank you. And Katherine, would you share with our viewers what is the free gift you have for us today?
Well, I'm excited that this fits so perfectly. I would like to offer a free vision kit. And the vision kit that we have, the link will have several tools in it. Some of them I alluded to earlier. So the sets of questions for you to set a personal vision, the sets of questions for you to set a professional vision, and also if you want to do a calibration retreat once a year, there's an agenda. There's a suggested agenda for how to set up that calibration retreat so that the owner can discuss and present their vision for the coming year and can align. Basically, everything we talk about is how do we get alignment between the people who work for us and our clients and the owner's vision. And so I'm happy to share that kit with any of your listeners.
That is wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So friends, you've been hanging out with Katherine Eitel and Nomita Mehta. Thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to check your inbox for tomorrow's interviews. Make it a super duper day. Thank you, Katherine.
Bye-bye, everyone.